Hey, out there, Mizzou fans. Welcome into what should be an interesting edition of the dance class presented by Burger Smokehouse. I anticipate the first half of the show is going to go really well. We're going to have a lot of comments. Everybody's going to feel really good. And then it's all going to fall apart. The internet will probably go out. The graphics will be bad. I'll lose my voice and you'll just start swearing at me. So that's about how tonight has gone so far. One of the stranger games I've ever seen. Missouri on cruise control, up 39-27 at half, scores 15 seconds into the second half to take a 41-27 lead. From there on out, 51-22, Mississippi State. The Bulldogs shoot 67.9% in the second half. Missouri basically kind of forgets how to do everything. I mean, at one point they had been outscored 39-13. They forgot how to run offense. They forgot what a good shot was. They forgot how to defend. Everything that they had done in the first half, they didn't do in the second half. So before we get into this, and we'll have some of your comments, we'll play Cuonzo Martin's post game and all that. Once again, we are brought to you every night after every conference basketball game, plus TCU, plus the postseason by Burger Smokehouse. It's third and fourth generation owned, family-owned business and operated in California, Missouri. They've got pulled pork, brisket, smoked ham, smoked turkey, ribs, anything you want, they've got it. The bacon is famous statewide, if not beyond that. Excellent stuff. I've had it quite a few times. You can get it online at smokehouse.com. You can get it at various grocery stores throughout the state of Missouri, including Schnucks, Gerbs, and Hy-Vee right here in Columbia. So check out Burger Smokehouse. They're making what we do possible here, and appreciate you guys being here. And we will get to your comments. As Mark Robinson says, we need to discuss this now. This was ridiculous. It was relatively ridiculous. We will discuss it now. But first, we're going to let Cuonzo Martin discuss it. We just finished talking to Coach. It's about 8 or 9 minutes long. He talked to us from the locker room in Starkville. So I'm going to play that for you guys. We'll come back, talk about what he said. We'll take your comments. We'll take your calls, all that. But real quick, here's Cuonzo Martin.
Hey, Coach Martin. I mean, up 14 in the second half. Did you sense a change in your team or in the way they were playing, or can you put your finger on what happened exactly?
I really can. It's one thing I said to our staff after the game. What happened? It was just slowly, and all of a sudden they make a run and make plays. I thought we had one of our better halves all season in the first half. Really moving the ball, sharing the ball, defending, protecting the lane, getting everything we want out of the ball. Screen actions, dives behind you. And then the second half, it just, I couldn't tell you. I need to watch film to see exactly what happened, but just wasn't the same team. Especially, I think we were up 14, and I don't know, with 17-minute mark, and the game kind of changed from there.
Gabe?
Cuonzo, did you sense any, during that run, did you feel like your team lost composure, shot selection, or anything on the offensive end?
I thought they did in spurts. We're trying to get back into it. And I thought maybe one or two before they start to make the run, instead of just continue like we talked about, take what they give you. Just take what they give you, make the right play. The game will take care of itself. And I thought, I don't know if we got consumed with us having the lead and not making the plays that got us there in the first place, and we paid for it.
Eric?
Cuonzo, how do you just go about correcting whatever you saw went wrong? Is it more so just letting the team get back on the floor, making this a quick for better, or something else?
No, I think, again, to be specific in areas, I have to watch film, but I just really thought from this, like in the first half, I thought we did a great job moving the ball, sharing the basketball, taking the scouting report to the floor, and that part was great. And I think in the second half, maybe around the 17-minute mark, maybe a quick shot here, off-balance shot here, they make a play, a foul here. Then when you take Tilly out, I think he got 3 fouls. We took him out. Then all of a sudden they got a run. They got their heads up. I thought we missed some open shots too. And it just went from there. And they played assertive. And then I thought Stewart made some big-time shots. He consistently made shots.
Mitch?
Cuonzo, you mentioned Stewart, and he and Molinar, I think, combined for 36 points in that second half. I mean, is that just, them knocking out shots, or is there something that you feel like should have, maybe been done differently on the defensive end on your all's part?
Oh, we, of course, have to be better because we were better in the first half. It's just really, again, taking pride. keeping the ball out of the lane like we did in the first half. We didn't do a very good job in the second half of keeping the ball out of the lane. I thought DJ Stewart made a couple tough shots, maybe 3 or 4 tough ones. But other than that, I thought Molinar was getting in the lane. That can't happen. We got to stop the ball high, force those bigs to shoot perimeter shots, and then, if you shoot the ball, you got to block out. And I thought we did all those things in the first half.
Dave Matter.
Cuonzo, I know you were concerned about them on the offensive glass, and the second chance points were really lopsided there. Just how big were some of those putbacks that they got tonight?
We know that bigs are physical, and they were key putbacks. I think they had 6 offensive rebounds in the first half. In the second half, they got key ones. But the key with their team, if you allow their guards to get in the lane and make plays, they're physical guards. You help up, you better block the shot. If not, their bigs on the backside getting offensive rebounds, and that's what happened. You got to keep them out of the lane. You got to keep those big bodies off the glass, and they took advantage, especially in the second half.
Sweetie.
Dave just kind of asked the question I was going to ask, but just when you look at the rebounding margin, that is 37 to 22, just for this team in particular, and I know you preach it every game for this Mississippi State team, just how big was that coming in?
That's the biggest thing with that team. They crash the offensive glass. They have big bodies. They crash in the glass. Now you just got to take pride in blocking guys out. Again, I said it 3 times, the same thing we did in the first half. Yeah, and again, I thought they had 6 offensive rebounds, but I thought we did a great job of cracking down, being physical, driving guys back. And you have to maintain that. I mean, this is a team that will keep coming, they'll keep hitting you, and you have to take pride. And it can't just be Jeremiah. Other guys got to take pride in hitting bodies and blocking out.
Jack.
Cuonzo, what's your message to the team when Mississippi State's going on this kind of run in the second half and you start to feel the game slipping away like that?
Well, a couple of things. Depending on the situation, gather yourself, maintain your composure. This is what we need to do, because if you see what's going on at that particular time, you address that situation. That's what we need to do to get stops. That's what we need to do to maintain. We got to focus on these things. And what happens, you have to settle in and you have to slowly get stops. I mean, you're not going to get 5 stops in one possession. You got to slowly get stops. Then you got to execute on the other side of the basketball. I thought we had some shots that just didn't go in the second half, and then all of a sudden we couldn't get stops, and that's how that lead escalated.
Dave.
Javon gave you a little spark there in the first half, but how much are you still really searching for some offense off the bench, some scoring there?
I think, like Mitch, we got to somehow get Mitch going. So I thought Mitch had some opportunities. I thought he had some open threes, because we got to find a way to get him going, because that's another element. I thought Javon had great energy there. And it's not so much as, searching for it, as long as those guys do what they need to do. But we got to find a way to get Mitchell Smith going.
Mitch.
Cuonzo, you've talked a lot this season about, guys having experience and having kind of taken their lumps and learning from that experience. I guess, does it, concern you at all when you see an experienced group kind of have that second half, or are you pretty confident that this will be contained to that half?
Oh, I'm confident we'll get it corrected. But I mean, the biggest focus is, like I said to our guys, when you're one of the top teams in the country, you have a number in front of you, teams approach you differently. There's a level of respect, and you have to maintain it with your work on the floor. And all of a sudden, you give a team an inkling of think, okay, we can compete with these guys. Let's do this. This will work. And then all of a sudden, now they make it a ball game, because everybody's talented. And you're going to get teams' best shots. And like I told those guys, when we were a team that was searching, trying to be ranked in all those things, we put everything in our power to try to win that game. And that's what they did. You're talking about a talented team, experienced physical team. They are. And they won the game. They set a different tone in the second half, and we paid for it.
Eric.
Cuonzo, how much of your job right now do you think is just to stay even keel? I mean, you really could have sung your team's praises over and over again after Saturday, and tonight you really could have done the exact opposite. How much is it just to stay calm, cool, and collected right now, do you think is part of your job?
I just think that's who you are, because, again, winning and losing is a very fine line. The last thing you want to do is, break spirits, because if you're a competitive basketball player and you take pride in what you do, I mean, there's certain things we address amongst each other, but when you're a competitive player and you love this and it pains you to lose games, you already feel certain things anyway. And you address stuff as a team. There's certain things I'll say in the locker room that I won't say in other settings, because you want to respect their space, and it's always a team and it's a family. But we got to get more toughness in certain areas, especially in the second half when teams are making run. We got to get a little more grit to us, and they made enough plays, and we couldn't bounce back.
We got time for a couple more. Colin.
Hey, Coach Martin, your team seems pretty well equipped to guard the three-point line and the rim, but pull-up jump shooters were a bit of an issue against Tennessee, and then again tonight. Is that a defensive weakness for this team, do you think, and how do you go about correcting that, or is it just the caliber of players in the SEC?
Oh, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a weakness. You're talking about two teams that made pull-ups because you're also talking about probably the lowest percentage shot. Now, they made the shots, but I'll take my chance any day. I think if you look at any type of analytics, those are the toughest shots. You're talking about tough twos. Maybe you're talking about guys that are probably 6'6", shooting over guys that are 6'3" and 6'4", but I'll take my chances on guys taking tough two-pointers.
Sweetie.
Cuonzo, you guys have done a pretty good job getting to the free throw line all season, but only 6 trips today. Just what kind of went into that, you think?
I just think, again, when they had 3 fouls in the second half, and it's just I'm not sure how many times I've seen that in my career where you have a team that plays man to man and only 3 fouls in the second half. I like to think we were getting downhill, crashing the glass and all that. So, but it's what it is. You deal with it, not to make any excuses, but just they're man. It's not as if they play in a zone. They play in a man-to-man defense. So there was some fouls somewhere, and it was a physical game, so I thought there was contact on the floor, but that's not the reason why we lost the game.
Last one, Ben Hockman.
Cuonzo, real quick, you mentioned Mitchell Smith. What are your desires for him from an offensive standpoint? Do you want him shooting as many 3-pointers as he was taking?
Yes, I want him shooting open threes. Those are shots he take a lot in practice. He makes them in practice. I want him shooting those open threes. I want him to be confident shooting them. Yes.
All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, so there you hear it. Cuonzo Martin from Starkville. Missouri gets beat 78-63. We're going to put the phone number up on the screen right there. If you guys want to call in, the Skype line is open. We will take your calls. We'll prioritize those. Anybody who's up with us and wants to give me a call and talk about this one, we will do that. I'm reading some of the comments in the chat, and we'll put some of those on the screen as we go along. And I kind of agree. I just watching that game, I almost felt like it was over at halftime. Missouri was playing so well. Mississippi State was just didn't really appear super interested. They weren't playing well at all. Everything Missouri was doing was working. Missouri was up 14 or 12 points at halftime. And like in the back of my head, I was thinking, it seems like it should be more. I even tweeted, I said, it seems like the lead should be bigger because 12 points, is not insurmountable in a college basketball game. You know that 12 points can go away pretty quickly in a college basketball game. So in the back of my head, I knew it seemed like it should be a little bigger, but just everything had gone so well for Missouri that you kind of thought they were going to extend that and probably win by more than 12. And then here's what happened at the beginning of the second half. 15 seconds in, Tillman makes a layup to put him up 41-27. Next possession for Mississippi State is a turnover. So Missouri has the ball with a 14-point lead with 19:25 left. Tolu Smith fouled Tillman after a steal. Kobe Brown missed a jumper. Tillman got the rebound. Pinson missed a jumper. Mississippi State got the rebound. So Mississippi State has the ball with 18:38 left, down 14 points. They got a putback by Tolu Smith. Missouri came right back. Drew Smith scored. 14-point lead with 18:28 to go in the game. From that point on, Missouri did just absolutely nothing right. Got outscored 49-20 the rest of the way. I mean, that is in. Look, if you had told me at some point that Missouri would get outscored by 30 points, I would have been surprised, but I would have thought, yeah, I mean, it's happened before. You could see it. It's possible. But not after 22 minutes of just dominating the game. I mean, they weren't just winning. They were dominating every phase of that game. And then it was like a switch flipped, and Mississippi State took all the energy Missouri had, and Missouri just, they wilted. And I won't use the word quit. I don't think they quit trying, but they quit doing what got them there. And I thought really the point that the play that I thought kind of marked, okay, this isn't going to happen. So they're down 55-52 with 7:45 left. They come out of a timeout. Drew Smith misses a three. Drew Smith misses a three. They go into the timeout with 7:26 left. They go down to the other end. DJ Stewart takes a bad off-balance three, and Drew Smith fouls him. Stewart made all 3 free throws. They went up 58-52 with 6:58 left, and at that point I thought, this is over. Missouri can't do this. And from that point, that was 58-52. Then Mississippi State went on an 11-2 run that put them up 15 and ended the game. And it was really during that run, from the 7-minute mark to the 3-minute mark, that I thought Missouri just panicked, and they looked like they all of a sudden just had no idea what to do on either end of the floor. And it was ugly. It absolutely was ugly. I don't think there's any question about it. So I'm going to run through some of your guys' comments. And again, well, here we go. We'll jump to the phone line. All right, 307 area code. Who's on the phone?
Hey, Gabe, it's Jim Bob in Wyoming. How's it going?
Not bad. What's up, Jim Bob? How you doing, man?
Well, I mean, at least we got a nice football transfer today.
Right. You've been better, I assume. Yeah.
It's snowing hard outside, so hopefully I'll go skiing this weekend.
There you go. You got that.
Yeah. So, Gabe, I'm wondering, can you think of any other example of a game where the halves were such different tales? And I'm even thinking like the game against Tennessee going into the game against Arkansas this year, those were drastically different, but whole games. Can you think of any example of the half like that?
The only one, and somebody pointed this out on Twitter to me, and it's as close as you can think of. The second half of the second game, the game in Lawrence against KU, Missouri had a 26-point lead with 17 and a half minutes left. And KU ended up tying.
Hate's first year.
It was, yes, Hate's first year. And
it was brutal too.
Yeah, and it was, they had, I think 26 was the number. That might be a little high. It might be 17. Somewhere in there. They had a huge lead early in the second half. And because I specifically remember I was at that game, and I remember telling whoever I was sitting next to, I said, this game's not over. Because, that was Kansas. That was a top 5 team in their building in a packed house. You knew that they were not nearly as bad a team as they had played for 23 minutes. And I said, Missouri's got to get to, the next TV timeout with this lead still intact. And Kansas just kind of started chipping away. And they ended up, I don't remember exactly when they got that game tied, but they did get the game tied. And, then it goes to overtime. Phil Pressey was fouled at the end of regulation, wasn't called, whatever, goes to overtime and KU wins. But that's the only one that I really remember that I can think that was like that. But there were some differences. I mean, the KU one was just kind of, it didn't seem quite as sudden. It seemed like over a 10-minute stretch they made up this huge deficit. And also, again, that was a top 5 team that was loaded with talent. This is a fine Mississippi State team. I mean, there's nothing special about them. And it was just, it was not only the basketball, it was the energy. I mean, Mississippi State didn't look like they cared in the first half. And in the second half, I mean, they were jumping all over the place. They were so excited, and Missouri was just kind of looking around like, hey, what's happening here?
Yeah, that's the feeling was so different because it wasn't even close at the end of this game. You just knew there was no chance.
You're right. Yeah, and like I was just saying just before you called, when Drew Smith committed that foul on the 3-point shooter with 7 minutes left, I said, oh, this isn't going to go their way. And then they just fell. Oh, it was a terrible foul. And we'll talk about Drew Smith down the road because he is not playing well. But after that foul, I almost felt like Missouri understood it wasn't going to happen then either, because they just did everything wrong for the next 4 minutes on both ends of the floor. I mean, they were taking terrible shots. They were turning the ball over. They weren't getting stops. It was bizarre. And I mean, I know it's popular to want to fire the coach and kill him, but it was the same coach in the first half. I'm not sure. I don't know what happened. It was insane.
Yeah, I try not to participate in the the daily or by game coach firing conversations, but
it would be exhausting emotionally to live on the pendulum.
right,
I think.
right.
Yes.
Well, so and then they're so bad, and then all of a sudden, the last 2 minutes, game's out of hand, and then Pinson can get whatever he wants all of a sudden. What happened there?
Yeah, I think that probably has something to do with Mississippi State just going, I don't care, get 2 points at a time. It doesn't matter. You know, I mean, they were up 15 at that point. Basically, the only thing Mississippi State's trying to do at that point is not foul and give them a 3-point play. So I don't put a lot of, I'll be honest, I was barely watching the last 2 minutes. I was getting, I was typing up stats and getting stuff ready for this. I mean, by that point, the game was decided. I thought the game was over with about 5 minutes left to play, which is, again, bizarre. Like, you were up 14 points just 13 minutes ago. I've never seen it swing quite like that. So.
All right. Well, thanks, Gabe. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Yeah, enjoy the ski trip, Jim Bob. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
All right. So Jim Bob calling in from Wyoming. And again, you guys want to call in, we're here. We'll take them. There's the number right there, 573-234-4935. We'll talk to you about it, kind of talk you through it, maybe, you know, a little therapy here. But that, like I was saying, that foul by Drew Smith, I thought was the play where I just said, yeah. This is going to go badly. And it went more badly than I could possibly imagine. And Drew Smith is a big part of that for this team right now. He's not playing good basketball. He's not playing smart basketball. He's not playing like senior leader basketball at all. Look up his numbers in this. The numbers, I think, look better than he was in this game. I mean, he had 11 points on 5 of 9 shooting, but he had 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 turnovers, 1 steal. I mean, this is the guy that you know is supposed to stuff the stat sheet and all that, and he just didn't. You know, he hit a couple shots, but he's just not impacting the game, and he's making bad plays at really bad times, like the foul on the 3-pointer. And Mark Smith, 7 points on 2 of 7 shooting. I don't know. I've seen enough that tells me against high-level athletic competition, Mark Smith can't be one of your go-to scorers. I don't think he can get it done against the better competition. I thought Tillman was good tonight, and that was good to see. He was engaged for a second straight night. He was 8 of 10 from the floor. He scored 16 points. I think most of them were dunks. He had 6 rebounds. He got 4 fouls. At least one of them I thought was a terrible call, but he had 1 turnover. It was an offensive foul. He had a steal. Played 28 minutes. I thought he played well enough for Missouri to win this game. His problem was nobody else did. I didn't think Pinson was terrible. Pinson had 13, and again, the scoring kind of came late, but he had a career-high 8 assists, and most of them were in the first half, and he was running the show and doing pretty well. That went away in the second half. I don't know if that's all on him, but I thought he was the second best player on this team tonight, which might be an issue. But Drew Smith and Mark Smith are giving you almost nothing. Kobe Brown is not giving you much of anything. He played 17 minutes, had 5 points. Mitchell Smith played 22 minutes, had 4 points, and was 0 of 4. Hey, Mitchell Smith and Kobe Brown, 1 of 7 from 3-point range. And this is where I will agree with you guys on the coaching. They can't keep taking those shots. Cuonzo can't keep saying, I want them to take them, they can make them. They can't. I mean, they can't. They're sub 30% shooters. I've seen it for, anywhere between 1.5 years and 3.5 years now. Those are bad shots for this team. You've got to get something better. Now, there are times where, maybe those guys are going to have to take a 3. But if you're standing out there and you're wide open, there is a reason you're wide open. And it's not because the other team is scared to death you're going to make it. It's the exact opposite of that. And so that is where I will definitely side with you guys. At some point, Cuonzo has to come off this, I want my guys to shoot, and they're good shots, and they can make them. I don't care if they can make them in practice, because they are absolutely not making them in games right now. So we're going back to the phone line, 636 area code. What's going on?
What's up, Gabe? It's Josh again.
How you doing, Josh? What's up, man?
Pretty good. Hope you're doing pretty good, too. But, I'm sure you've kind of gotten this vibe, and I'm sure you brought it up before, but you've gotten this just from your board and just from like numbers on your site when it comes to football and basketball. I just feel like basketball, just not as many people care anymore, and part of like this is why like what happened tonight, because like I'm a younger fan. I'm on the younger side, but I still remember some of those like early Hayes teams and stuff like that. And I was able to get up for those teams, but it's just hard to get up for a team like this because it's like I've been watching the same team for 3 years.
Yeah. I think it's a few things. I mean, there are more football fans because we're in a time where the people who are really fans now, like in their prime of being a sports fan, grew up with Gary Pinkel, and that was the best Missouri football has been. And at the same time, Missouri basketball was going down. I think we talked about this. Maybe it was even you that called in last time. It's a little bit of an age thing. If you're my age, you grew up with Missouri basketball being good and football not being good. This is the opposite. But Missouri basketball has not had sustained success for. We're getting close to 20 years. Quinn Snyder went to 4 NCAA tournaments in his first 4 years. Now, Mike Anderson, I would argue, had sustained success for a couple years and then into the first year of Haith. I think they made 3 or 4 straight then. So if you want to count that as the last time, we're talking about a decade. But the only time Missouri's been relevant in the last 7 years nationally is for about 45 minutes with Michael Porter Jr. They are again this year. Like we need to understand still they're 7-2. They're in the top 20.
Yeah.
It's a good year so far, and it what I'm fighting back against tonight more than, and fighting back it's a strong word. I'm not, but what I disagree with tonight is it's just. It can't. Every game can't be a referendum. And look, I won't disagree with somebody who says, "Look, I didn't like the hire of Cuonzo at the beginning, and I didn't like it after his first year, and I don't like it now, and I don't think he's going to get the job done." That's fair. But my bigger issue is last Wednesday we're burying him and want to fire him. Then Saturday, all of a sudden, look how tough this team is. I love it. They came back. It's good to have Missouri basketball back. And now tonight we want to fire him again. I mean, to live on that emotional pendulum would be exhausting to me. And maybe it's not the same people, but my guess is it's some of the same people.
Yeah, no.
But I understand what you're saying. It's hard to get invested in at times.
Yeah, no, and I kind of some of the time I consider myself kind of a knee-jerk reaction fan. Like I totally understand it, but I will give Cuonzo credit for I think he's done a good job this year so far, just given what he has to work with. But at the same time, giving yourself a good group of players to work with is half the job. So that, of course, I know that's what most fans are upset about. But then you were talking about, it's been a long time since they've been relevant. And, sometimes that's part of the reason I feel like we don't recruit well. I mean, today's recruits just don't remember when Mizzou was good, and they just it doesn't matter to them. Now, what Martin has going for him, I believe, is more programs than ever are recruiting at levels that they haven't before, because I think in basketball it's a little bit easier to get momentum. Just the question is whether or not Cuonzo can get that momentum.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually say you said getting the players is half the job. In college basketball, I think it's about 80%. Recruiting is 80% of the job, because the guys with the better players almost always win in basketball. So. And I understand. I do understand the frustration, and we talked about this last Wednesday too. But my frustration is, let's talk about this game tonight and not make it about the last 7 years, right? Like this game was frustrating enough without going back 7 years and dragging every other loss into it. But when every loss becomes more proof because, well, remember that one time he did this 2.5 years ago. I mean, we're having different discussions, I think, and so I completely understand being frustrated with where things are, but I think you also have to take a half step back. And I mean, we talked about it on our pregame show tonight when this week to me was actually going to be more telling than last week, because Tennessee and Arkansas, those were the 2 toughest games probably on your whole schedule. So I said this week, if you go I said teams that are going to win the SEC or that are going to maybe finish second in the SEC go 2-0 this week. They win at Mississippi State and they beat LSU at home. Now, I said if Missouri doesn't do that, that doesn't mean it can't be a good season, but it does mean to me they're probably not going to be first or second in this league. They're more going to be fighting for, like, are they fourth or fifth in that range? And that's good. I mean, where they've been, it's still an NCAA tournament season. It's a lot better than they've been, but I don't think – I think teams that are going to win this league win this game.
Yeah, and one more thing I will throw into, I think the reason fans are they want to fire Cuonzo after every bad game is just because, just from what we've seen throughout the Cuonzo tenure, so far, it's been disappointing. I think most would agree with that. It's been disappointing, so they're just waiting for that one game where they can point and be like, oh, yep, there's the Cuonzo Martin I know, there's the Mizzou basketball I know. But, I appreciate the insight, Gabe, and thanks for taking my call.
All right, Josh, appreciate you calling in, man. Thanks, and thanks for staying up late and hanging out with us. All you guys that are here, thanks for hanging out with us. It's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night now. I know some of you probably have real jobs that this is not actually your job, and you're just here in your free time. So do appreciate that. I know Burger Smokehouse appreciates that. Again, go to smokehouse.com. Go to any grocery store in mid-Missouri or really all over the state of Missouri. You can get any of their fine products. They are helping us put this show on every night. We're going to do this after every Missouri basketball game the rest of the season. If you want to call in, the number is there, but now I know there's a lot of comments building up, and I want to kind of roll through some of these. Mark Robinson says, go back before halftime, the energy completely left the team. You may be right, Mark. I don't remember thinking that live. I didn't notice it until Mississippi State started to make the run. Even early in the second half, again, Tillman came out and scored, and everything looked fine. And then, like, that's the thing. I can't really pinpoint a moment where you go, well, that turned it around. It was just like all of a sudden, it was like, here's what it was like. When whatever video game system you grew up playing, I grew up playing Sega Genesis, right? There was an NBA game, and you could put computer assist on, which means once you got down like 20 points, the computer was going to help out the guy that was behind to make a competitive game. It was like Ben Howland hit the computer assist button with 18 minutes left to go. And all of a sudden, somebody just reached down from above and said, Missouri, you are no longer allowed to do things well. And Mississippi State, you're all of a sudden going to look like a Final Four basketball team. And I don't know what spurred it. Like, there's no specific play or specific thing. There wasn't even like, hey, Mississippi State made this big play and they drew energy for it. It was just all of a sudden it just changed. It just at the drop of a hat, and it was really bizarre. And Mark, like I said, I'm not saying you're wrong. You might be right, but I don't remember watching live, seeing anything at the end of the first half that tells me it had changed. Adam says, when we don't score in transition, we don't know how to score. Our offense is pick and roll with Pinson. If that's not there, we stand around praying for a terrible shot to go in. I'll agree with a lot of that. When they're not getting easy baskets, when they're not scoring in transition, this is not a good half-court offensive team. It is completely reliant on Xavier Pinson and Jeremiah Tillman. Now, Drew Smith last year, I felt like did a pretty good job getting in the paint, getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line. That's not happening this year. And I don't know if it's because, my guess is it's because other SEC teams have a scouting report on him. They've seen him a little bit. They know how to stop him, and he's not a great athlete. He's not Pinson. He's not 100 miles an hour, Tasmanian devil spinning and creating out there. It takes him a little bit. It's a different approach, and it's not happening right now. But Adam, I agree with a lot of those criticisms. I think those are fair, certainly. David says they drove in the first half, then it turned into Mitchell Smith, Kobe Brown. 3-point showed the two worst 3-point shooters, and Drew with more turnovers. Tillman, dumb fouls. Again, I thought Tillman's I think it was his third foul was an illegal screen. I thought that was a bad call, honestly, and then he got his fourth one like 12 seconds later. But yeah, the Mitchell Smith, Kobe Brown stuff, that's a thing. I have different conversations offline sometimes than I have publicly, and I've told people, like, those guys can't shoot the three. I mean, the coach has to step in at some point, and I agree with that. That's a place you hold Cuonzo Martin responsible. He needs to step in and say, this isn't your shot. You can't make them. We've got to stop doing it, So, let's see. Yeah, Jake says one of the biggest second half turnarounds I've ever seen. Agreed. Adam wants to know, why do we suck against Mississippi State? Mississippi State's now won 8 out of 9 against Missouri. And some of them have been really ugly games. We talked on the pregame show, 72-45 last year in Starkville. And I don't think it's just a Ben Howland thing. I think it's gone, it was even before it was before Cuonzo was here. I don't know if it was before Howland was here or not. But you know what Mississippi State always has, I think, and this goes back to like when I was in college, when I watched a lot more basketball than I do now. They've always had athletes, man. Dante Jones, Eric Dampier, like they've had dudes, right? That can. They haven't always been a great team, but they've always had some guys that you just look at and say that's a pretty good individual player. And one thing I do think has to be done tonight is to give some credit to Iverson Molinar and to DJ Stewart. They combined to score 44 points on 17 of 30 shooting. 9 of 9 from the line. 1 of 2 from 3, by the way. Mississippi State took a grand total of 6 threes. But in the second half, Iverson Molinar, 6 for 10, 16 points. DJ Stewart, 8 for 10, 20 points. So Stewart and Molinar combined to score 36 of Mississippi State's 51 points in the second half. Missouri couldn't stop them. And I agree with Cuonzo. Not all of those shots were just like, layups and open 5-foot jumpers. Like, they hit some tough shots too, and they do deserve credit for that. Again, a turnaround like that doesn't happen without help from the team that was ahead, but we also do have to give Mississippi State some credit for, not packing it in at halftime. Yeah, there you go, Zachary. Second half was the Iverson Molinar ISO show, and I don't know for sure who was guarding him because I didn't watch it quite, live. I don't remember the matchup, but whoever was on Molinar had trouble. Whoever was on Dwight Stewart had trouble too. When do we start looking at just how similar Odom and Cuonzo are? Odom played most of last year without a healthy QB and All-American linebacker. Why does he not get a pass for injuries, but Cuonzo does? Well, the simple reason is because Odom took over a program that was it wasn't in the worst shape Missouri football's ever been in. And Missouri basketball was when Cuonzo walked in. Like, they gave him that 6-year deal, and you knew, like, he gets those 6 years, or he gets most of it. This is year 4. He's going to get this year. He's going to get next year. And then next spring, hey, if we're talking about 3 missed tournaments in 4 years and a program going the wrong direction and the recruiting's not there, then that's a discussion we'll have next spring. But part of the reason I get exasperated after every game when we try to have a discussion about his job is it's not going to happen this year. Maybe if they wouldn't have been good this year and COVID wouldn't have happened, then maybe it would have happened this year. But COVID saved his job. And then again, like, they're pretty good. They're 13th in the country. If they win on Saturday, they're still going to be probably top 16 or 17 in the country. They're not going to fall that far for a road loss at Mississippi State. I know we see it and know how it happened. Most people won't. Most people will just go and look, that's weird. They must have played well, lost by 15 at Starkville, but Mississippi State's not bad. They won't get dinged too bad for it if they come back and win Saturday. Now, they lose Saturday, they're going to fall, probably not all the way out, but they'll fall significantly. All right. Let me keep on rolling through here. Writing is on the wall with Cuonzo. He's a high floor, low ceiling coach that will live around the bubble every 3 years. He's not going to do anything special here. I think that's fair. Like, I've literally said that since the day he was hired. I've used that exact phrase. High floor, low ceiling. I used that exact phrase like the week he was hired, and that was my concern. My concern was you were going to be happy with anybody that replaced Kim Anderson because that person was automatically going to be better than Kim Anderson. I mean, Kim was the least successful coach this program's ever had, and anybody was going to look better. But I said, don't, it's a good is the enemy of great thing. Like, Cuonzo's a solid coach, but he hasn't shown in 9 years previous to this that he can get a program to the point where you guys want it, where Missouri basketball fans think it can be. Now, I got a text from a friend of mine the other night that put it pretty well. He said, I've come to the conclusion, like, Cuonzo's a really good bridge coach. He's going to build it up from where it was. You're not going to be awful. He's going to get it to a point where you can hire a better guy when he decides he's done. And I think maybe that's true. Like, I don't think Cuonzo's a Final Four coach. I don't think anybody's going to call him a top 10 in the country coach, anything like that. But he does a good job. He gets programs going. And maybe that's ultimately what his job will end up having been here. But we'll see down the road. I mean, all it takes is to get hot at the right time. I mean, hey, if Missouri's first 6 games of the season had been in the NCAA tournament, like, you're talking about a Final Four team, because, like, that was basically an NCAA tournament. All right, first game is against Oral Roberts. That's like a 15 seed. Then your second game is against Wichita. That's like a 7 seed. And then, hey, Sweet 16, you're getting Oregon. Elite 8, you're getting Illinois. And there you go. You're in the Final Four. And Missouri won those 4 games pretty much in a row. So if you do that at the right time, it's not impossible by any stretch of the imagination. So it's too early to say he's not going to do anything special here, but I don't think it's unfair to have that opinion. So, all right, going to the phone lines, 573. Who am I talking to?
Second game is against Wichita. That's like a.
Hey, who's on the phone?
Am I on?
Yeah.
This is Tigger 100.
What's up, man? How are you?
Good. Look, watching the show, listening. Just like the last point that was made about the next step, getting to that next coach. Do you think that possibly that next coach needs to be young, vibrant, something like we went with Drink? Because I feel like this needs a Quinn Snyder redo, obviously, with different, a different result than the end of that regime. But I feel like that is something that we need because we have to score. NBA has showed us that you need to shoot from the outside and you score at the bucket. And defenses always carry over. Defense you can play anywhere. You can play a defense anywhere. It does need to have that energy and everything else, but I'm kind of to the point now where I feel like we're going to have to find a way to score. Is that not kind of what you're saying too, a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need more offense, and I've said this at times over the last couple of years. Like, you can't go into every game thinking you're going to win 59-58 because on some nights the other guys are just going to make shots, and I think that's a little bit what happened tonight. Molinar and Stewart just made some shots, and so then you've got to have a guy that can respond by making shots, and right now Missouri really doesn't have that guy. Now the interesting thing is, like, they looked better offensively the first few games this year, and I'm not sure why that was. I'm not sure what they were doing then that they aren't doing now. I mean, against Oregon, they hit 1 million threes, and I get that. But against Oral Roberts, I mean, they didn't. They put up 91 points, and they put up 81 against Illinois, and they didn't shoot the ball great in that game. They were getting to the line more. That's one thing, but I guess I can't quite put my finger on why this team seems to have gone back to last year offensively when for the first 6 games of this year they look pretty good offensively.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you on that. And I'm 40, just so you know, so I kind of go back to the older age of watching the Norm. That's what I grew up with and everything. But I do remember one of the best things he ever said. We can play great defense for 40 minutes and score a lot. And especially in that 94, we rewatched the 94 season, 5 or 10 times now this year,
right,
which is fantastic. That's what that team was a perfect example of. You can play really hard defense, play really good defense, but you can still score, and you don't necessarily even have to have, which we ended up having, tremendous athletes and great basketball players, but we didn't know that, and not early in that season.
Right.
That's the kind of thing I think we're missing right now. We still have really good athletes, I think they can score. I just don't think they're actually being put in a position or understand the position they need to score. Like, for instance, Drew Smith last year when he busted out on the scene last year at the very beginning of the season, he was a point guard, but he was a guy that was looking to score, and now he takes 2 extra dribbles a lot of the time into traffic, doesn't make the pass that looks like it's an easy one, and turns it over when if he takes 1 dribble and pops a 17-footer, he probably makes it, 45, 50% of the time, maybe 60% of the time.
So here's my question.
Like he's become hesitant.
Here's my question about Drew Smith. How much of what we're seeing out of Drew Smith is SEC teams and coaches now having seen him for a full year and having a scouting report on him? Because he's not a great athlete. He plays old man basketball. And so maybe these guys have seen him and said, okay, now we know how to stop him. And all of a sudden, now this rec league spin 4 times below the rim game doesn't work quite as well as it did in year 1, maybe.
That's a really good point. That's actually something that I would like to say on the other side. Is it not your coaching staff that needs to say, okay, you have a great 17-footer, a 15-footer. You've been really good at getting to the rim. They're not going to let you do it. Now, instead of going into the traffic, stop after a dribble, pop from 15, you do that 3 times a game. Guess what? Then they have to come out on you, and all of a sudden, you get 1 more dribble around them. You get to go back to what you're good at.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a good call.
I mean, that's the adaptability of coaching, though. That's something that you see the tendencies. The other coaches have picked up on the tendencies. You're good. Because I think you're right. He's probably not a great athlete, but as a basketball player, skill-wise, he's good enough to make a change or 2 here or there.
I agree with that, and I think he and Mark Smith are going to determine if Missouri has an okay season or a really good season. Because if those 2 guys play well, like Pinson and Tillman are playing well, if Mark and Drew join them, there's a lot of focus right now on Mitchell Smith that, like, he's the 6th or 7th man on this team. He's not what's holding this team back. Now, yes, he needs to take fewer threes and maybe make more, but, like, Mitchell Smith isn't going to be the difference between, a 7 seed and a 3 seed. That's going to be Mark and Drew to me. And those guys haven't been playing well for the last couple weeks, and I think Missouri needs them to again.
100%. If Mark Smith can just do his specialty game and be confident in it and take the shot in rhythm when he needs to, because a lot of the time, I don't know if you've noticed last few games, and maybe I'm the only one that has noticed, he'll get it, and he'll get it in rhythm, and he'll get it in his hands, and he'll be ready to pop it, and then he'll put it on the floor, and he turns it over more times than not when he does that.
Yeah, he's a spot-up shooter, and I think it's time to just admit that.
Yeah, but when he does it, he misses 2 in a row, but he might make 3 in a row. But he hasn't really tested it this season where he's taken 5 of those opportunities to see if he's going to miss 2 and make 3.
Yeah.
He'll take 1, miss it. He'll maybe take another one 7 minutes later. Well, that's not a rhythm. You're a rhythm shooter, man.
Right.
Take 2 or 3. We can live with, hey, we're a good enough offensive rebounding team. Take more. We might get the offensive rebound if you miss it and put it back up for a layup.
Yeah, he was 1 of 5
that might
tonight.
Be better than our offense.
He was 1 of 5 tonight from 3, but I don't really even remember him. Like, I was surprised to find out he took 5 threes.
But that's because, I feel like he takes it, he misses it, then 3 or 4 more. He might have had 2 or 3 opportunities to take another one, but he's passed it up, and then 7 minutes later and he takes another one. No, he's a rhythm shooter. You can see it in his stroke. He kind of reminds me of like a young Thomas Gardner, not late Thomas Gardner, a very young Thomas Gardner, where he got hesitant, but then finally, was it Mike Anderson, I guess, just told him shoot. I mean, Ben Lindsay was one of my neighbors. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh,
he was on that coaching
I remember
staff.
Ben. Yeah.
He said we finally just told him to shoot.
Yeah.
Shoot. If you have it and you're a shooter, shoot. Yeah. And that's kind of the same thing that I think in some ways, this whole coaching staff just doesn't know how to coach that style of offense, so to speak.
Yeah.
And again, I love Mizzou, and I'm not gonna trash anybody. I like Cuonzo. I like the whole coaching staff, but they got to have somebody in there that knows how to coach that confidence on the offensive side.
Yeah.
And those are the small things that others have that we may not have right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because what you want to see out of this team is go on a little run. Like, you don't want one step forward, one step back throughout the SEC season, because it feels like you're going to leave something. I mean, this feels like a season you should be 12-6 or better in the league, and you make that harder when you do things like go to Starkville and lose.
Right. Right now, the bounce back was great on Saturday. I thought that was but let's not. I also, because of our history, I was cautious in my own thoughts.
Yep.
Well, they didn't have their best player. So, but that doesn't mean it's still not hard to go down there and win.
Right.
This was a game where we needed to get over that because we have a stretch of winnable games coming up. I think. I think every game's winnable. But when you have a 30-point swing, every game's losable too.
Exactly. 100%, man.
And when it creeps into your mind as a player and a team after something like this, I think they're veterans enough. They'll come together and figure it out, and I think we got a good chance. But at the same time, every single time one of these things, if there's a crack, are they gonna fold?
Right.
Or are they gonna come back out stronger?
They let doubt creep in tonight, no question about it. And yeah, so appreciate the call, man. A lot of good stuff, and appreciate you staying up with us.
Like the show. Thanks, man.
All right, thanks a lot. Have a good night. Again, invite you if you've got more to say about this one. I feel like we've said a lot about it. I'm not sure, how many more ways we can break down the second half, but I'm more than happy to do it. Going to roll through some of the comments. Jack says reminds him of the 2018 Kentucky football loss. This one took longer, right? That Kentucky thing. Well, and here's the difference. The Kentucky game, exactly where it flipped. It flipped on the Lynn Bowden punt return. Like right then you said, oh, man, something's happening here, and you can feel it. I don't know what that point was in this game. It was just all of a sudden everything was going well, and then, like I said, Ben Howland just threw his controller and turned the game off and started over, and his team won by 27 points the rest of the way. Nothing led to it. It just happened out of nowhere all of a sudden. Bizarre. Cam says Pinson didn't have his best game, but he needs to be on the floor more. I agree. He's got to play the most minutes on the team. He doesn't get tired. He's by far the best athlete on the team. I would tell him you're going to play until you're either in foul trouble or you tell me you're tired. I would play him 36 minutes a night. I completely agree with that. Offense is better with him running it. Totally agree. If Pinson and Tillman are not playing at a high level, this team just isn't very good. Well, I was going to say the problem is they did tonight and they still weren't very good. That's not true. They didn't play at a high level. Tillman played pretty well, and Pinson played okay. They were the two best players on the team, but that's not to say they played at a high level. That would probably be overstating what happened. Just kind of rolling through, trying to get your guys' comments in, and Adam and David, and appreciate all you guys who are hanging out here with us. If you do me a favor while you're here, if you're still here, hit the like button on the show. Subscribe to the channel. You'll get alerts for when we go live. That way, especially these post-game shows, I don't know exactly when they're going to start because it depends how long. This was a really fast game tonight. It got over quickly. Cuonzo got into the press conference quickly, so we ended up starting about 15 minutes earlier than I thought we would have. Last week was about 15 minutes later. So if you subscribe to the channel, you'll get notifications for when we go live, and you'll be able to jump on when we do so. Breakfast King says, could we please stop playing weeknight games? I'm for that, man. 6 a.m. is going to come early tomorrow morning. So, yeah, let's quit the weeknight games. Just play every Saturday and Sunday. I'd be good with that. David Newman brings up a good point, man. I thought about it. When Cuonzo says, yes, I want Mitchell Smith to shooting threes, that's a quote that's going to be brought up. I knew when he said it. Oh, that one's not going to go over super well. Drew Buggs hasn't played much, but he's been disappointing. Yeah, he hadn't been quite what I thought he was going to be. He's no threat to score. I don't think he kills you, but I don't know that he gives you a lot either. David can't think of anything to say, but I wanted to contribute, so that sucked. I appreciate it. That kind of sums it up. No question about it. Oh man, Josh fan, appreciate the super chat, man. I normally get an alert when that happens, and I didn't get one. So I hope you're still on, and I do appreciate that. Again, appreciate anybody that I appreciate you guys just watching and hanging out with us. But anybody that tosses that our way, we try to definitely make sure to get it on the screen and give you a special thanks and special attention. So thank you for doing that again. I normally get an alert. I didn't see it earlier, so I do want to make sure I got to it. And thank Josh for that. And I believe that was actually Josh who called in earlier, and we talked for a while. So appreciate, again, all you guys that are here. And Troy, okay, like I wanted to talk about this because it kind of became not the story. And look, I'm not normally an announcer guy. I normally really don't care much. It's kind of background noise. I mean, there's some I like a little more than others. I'll listen to Kevin Harlan call a game anytime. I really like Gus Johnson. But for the most part, announcers, whatever. I don't care. But like Damian Fishback tonight, he decided 5 minutes into that game that somehow by playing 10 extra minutes against Kentucky, that Mississippi State couldn't stand up. I mean, it's 3 days ago. They're 20-year-old kids. It was 10 minutes in a really slow-paced game at home. They went at early in the day, and they went home and got rest and slept in their own beds for 2 more nights, and then came back. And I don't know. I guess they were just exhausted from. I don't really know where he came up with that. My special favorite was on a breakaway, and I can't remember which player it was. I think it was Molinar, but a breakaway, he laid it up, and Fishback said, well, that's where you can really tell. See, if he's not tired, he dunks that. And then in the second half, when things flipped, and when Mississippi State was not tired and was jumping all over the court and super excited, then his argument for Missouri at that point was that Missouri had been reading press clippings and believed the press clippings and thought they had arrived, and that's why they fell apart in the second half. It was, bottom line, some of the most one-note awful analysis I've ever heard of a basketball game. To the point where I don't normally pay attention to announcers, and I wanted to turn the sound off. It was dreadful, which is somewhat standard for SEC Network basketball games not called by Tom Hart or John Sunvolt. Those guys call the game. I love it. Other than that, I'm not a big fan of the crew in general. But yeah, that was some of the worst I've heard. No question. At least he wasn't Barry Booker insulting cheerleaders or whatever it was that led to the suspension last year. But pretty ugly. Okay, David Brady reminded me the biggest lead was 19 in that game in Lawrence, and they tied it with 15 seconds left. So I appreciate the heads up on that. We talked about that back on the first call. Troy, Mississippi State shot only 6 threes and took the shot selection I dreamed Mizzou would stick to. Yeah, 100%. I mean, Tennessee only shot 7 threes and beaten Missouri. You don't have to shoot 20 threes to score a lot of points. Drew Smith committed more dumb fouls than Tillman this season by a lot. I've said that a number of times. I totally agree with that. I think these past 4 games are the worst I've seen for Drew. Is foul trouble getting in his head? It could be. That could be part of it, but I agree. He's not playing well, and they need him to play well. Okay, David Brady says the last 4 games, 13 turnovers, 6 assists, terrible fouls, and only scored in double digits once, and it was tonight, and he didn't play well. So that's interesting. I didn't realize it was that. Breakfast King says the Smiths aren't good right now, but we're a good band. I'll trust you on that. I've heard of them, but I'm not super familiar with their work. Why does Mitchell Smith continue to shoot threes? We can talk about that for a while longer, Davin, but I don't know how we can fix it because we've not yet figured it out. And he's like a 4th or 5th year senior. All the way back to the Illinois game, Mark Smith has been quiet. That's probably fair. All right, we're reliving history, and look, I'm all for that, but yeah, again, I'm behind on the comments, so we're catching up, and I understand people get down after losses, but hey, you got another one Saturday, and we'll see how it goes. This was a weird game. It was certainly a discouraging game. I just turned something off, and there, it came back. Certainly a discouraging game. I understand why people are upset. I think more than upset, just weird. It kind of stunned, honestly. It kind of like Cuonzo Martin after the game. Like, I asked the coaches what happened, and I was right there too. Just kind of how'd that happen, So, but it did, and it left Missouri 7-2, 1-2 in the league. LSU comes to town on Saturday night. We'll have a pregame show at 6:30, postgame show afterwards. Hopefully there will be a few more people. We'll hang out for a while longer because it's going to be a Saturday rather than a Tuesday. Tomorrow night, Mitchell Forty and I will be right back here with the 573 report. Mitch has complete coverage on the site. I'm going to put Cuonzo's video up, put up some closing thoughts there. So appreciate you guys hanging out with me late on a Tuesday night. Sorry you weren't a little happier, but that's how it goes. So thanks to you guys. Thanks to Burger Smokehouse for sponsoring this show. Once again, smokehouse.com. Get anything you need. Great stuff. Pulled pork, beef, brisket, bacon, ham, turkey, all kinds. They've got like snack sausage, snack sticks, all kinds of stuff. Check out Burgers. They're a big supporter of Power Mizzou, big supporter of Mizzou athletics also. And so we want to make sure you guys support the people that support us and make this possible. So thanks to you guys for hanging out. We're going to wrap this up. We'll be back tomorrow night on the 573 report and Saturday with more basketball.